Welcome to the Be Empowered podcast with your host, Graham Hopkins. My goal is to help you regain your power by bridging the gap between who you think you are right now and who you really are. In simple language, that is like making your childhood dreams come true. This is for those who want to make an impact in their lives but don't know how to get there. Be ensured, when you know and feel connected to your spiritual mind, you master your world. So welcome everybody to this edition of the Be Empowered show. I'm your host, Graham Hopkins. Today we have Bill Lee-Emery. Now, Bill, by this stage, probably doesn't need an introduction, but we're having Bill back today to just refine and put a capstone on everything that he's taught us about embraining. The fact that it's scientifically proven now that we actually have 3 brains and not 1. So Bill, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Graham.
So Bill, I was just wondering if you could give us a little bit of a summary of where we've gone with this whole thing, and then maybe move into the prime functions of the 3 brains.
Yeah. So you're right. As you say, science is, well recognized that we have 3 intelligences or brains: our head, our heart, and our gut. And the analogy I've used before is like being a parent of 3 kids. They're all very different. Hopefully you love them all, but they are very different. They have different temperaments, if you like, different capacities, different skills. And it's not as if one is better than the other. I want to make that very clear and plain. It's not, one isn't better than the other. They just all do different things. And when we understand that they do different things, that they have things that they're really good at doing, then it's really easy, if you like, to use our natural intelligences for what they were designed for, which is, as you say, when we talk about the prime functions, this is what we're really talking about. So for the head brain, the prime functions are around cognitive perception, how we make sense of the world through our 5 senses, 6 senses really. But also it's about, analysis, creativity. It's also, the head brain is also very good at making up stories about life and making meanings about things. Now, as I've said before, sometimes the meanings that we make about things are really useful and relevant, and sometimes the meanings that we make out of stuff is just plain rubbish. It's just like, why did I do that? It's like not very intelligent in that sense. But that, the head brain is a bit like Google. You can go to Google and you can go to some really good websites, really life-enhancing ones. You can also go to some dark, scary, horrible places. So the choice is always ours, but this is what the head brain, it loves coming up with ideas and solutions. So the heart brain is our emotional center. It's the relational effect that we have with things. So it's how we connect. This is our deep connector. This is also where we hold our values. When we think about what gets us up in the morning, it's not necessarily just our head. The head can come up with a lot of great ideas, but it's the heart which has really depth, if you like, or meaning to our life. And it is the emotional connector with all living things. And then we come down to the belly, and there are 3 core prime functions of the belly. One is about core identity of who we are as a human being. And this, encompassed around this, is also our protection, because the gut brain is involved with our immune system. Like 80% of our immune system comes from the belly. Serotonin, dopamine, a whole bunch of chemical reactions, if you like, that come in as a protective device, as to monitor what comes into our body, so it knows whether to say yes or whether to say no. The other thing that is really relevant for us as human beings, the gut brain is also connected to our mobility. And there's a very big difference, for example, than just being busy in our life to taking inspired action. It's like chalk and cheese is so different. And when we want to do something, when we're naturally moved to doing something, there's ease and there's flow with that as well. So once we understand the head brain's really good at thinking, analysis, creativity, doing that kind of work, the heart is the connector, where we add value and meaning in our life. And our gut brain is the mobilizer. So in traditional Chinese medicine, as I've said, the heart is the emperor or the empress, the head is the governor, and then the general is the belly, the gut brain. And there's been a lot of work that's been done, especially like I'm seeing so much work and research coming out around the gut brain, around the biological activity that happens in our belly and how that affects mood, how it affects the things that we do, things like anxiety and depression, deeply connected with our belly. And if you look at all the esoteric practices around the world, you'll see there's a natural alignment. They all talk about these three centers in the works that they have been produced. So which then comes to what we spoke, we've touched on this a little bit before about highest expressions. So the highest expressions it's different because when you talk about the core competencies, the prime functions, that really is like an internal focus. The highest expressions, really the focus more is on how we express ourselves into the world. So it's not just the focus on us, but it's also what we do coming from us. So it really is a high level of consciousness that's what we're really talking about here. So let me talk about, I'll start with the head and kind of go down. So the head brain, the highest, when it's being its best, it's being creative. And if you look around the world, like if you look around my office, everything that I see has come out of someone's creativity. Even the garden that I can see out of my window came from someone going, I want to put a tree here, I want to put a shrub here. So sure, the trees and the shrubs came from nature, but they were designed, if you like, and placed into nature from someone's creativity. And the other thing about creativity is it can create something out of nothingness. Like when I look back on my own life and when I've been highly creative in those times, it's almost like I had a blank sheet of paper and something popped up. And I go, wow, that's really interesting, and often it needs to be directionalized from the heart, but it can come from a space of nothingness, which is great because it's not as if you've got to work at being creative. All you've got to do is, in a sense, is get out of the way and let creativity pour out, through your intelligence. And I remember, this is in the late 70s when I made my first shift in consciousness, my first conscious shift in consciousness. At that time I'd been working in computers and I did a program which was all about getting into the alpha state. And so I came literally from a black and white world of computers into this world, kind of like from left brain into right brain, far out what's going on, And I remember for days and months afterwards, it's like someone had turned on a tap of creativity and there was such a flow of ideas. I couldn't keep up. Even if I've been writing them down all day, it was overwhelming because I didn't know what to do with them all. So I actually said to my consciousness, said, whoa, slow down, you're overwhelming me, there's so many ideas, it's too much. So the head brain can be the vehicle for creative expression in the world. And when we're coming from highest expressions, it means it's not just creativity, but it's linked to compassion and it's linked to courage. So as I said before, the head brain can go anywhere, but when you're coming from highest expressions, the creativity is naturally, organically, innately connected to our sense of compassion and our capacity for courage. And that's a really important distinction. So then,
can I ask a question?
Yeah.
When you talk about a pop-up, what do you mean by that?
Okay. I'll give an example of this. And I think I'd done my coach certification at that time, and I was sitting on the veranda meditating, and I had no agenda. I was just sitting in quietness. and stillness, and really enjoying like the sun on my face, and it's just a really quiet space. And these words just pop into my head, which has become something that I use at the bottom of my emails, and it's this. If you're not following your heart, then where are you headed? And it just popped in, and I'm going, wow, that's great. And I rushed and I wrote it down because I wanted to remember it. And it's not as if I thought, I think I'll make up a really groovy quote that I can put on my website. I was just sitting there doing nothing, and it just popped in. It's like, a lot of great ideas come when people are walking on the beach, having a shower, doing something that their consciousness is distracted by, and there's a space there. So that's why things like mindfulness, like meditation, are such good daily practices for all human beings, because it allows a space where something can pop in. Now, when you connect this then to the heart, and the highest expression of the heart being compassion, then we can literally directionalize where we send our head brain, where we want it to be created. So rather than going kind of like everywhere, we can say, okay, this is close to my heart. I want you to come up with some ideas that support that. Because we've kind of said this before and discussed this, that the head brain and the gut brain are there to serve the heart. They're both there to serve the heart. So when we live in the world from a place of highest expressions around the heart, which is compassion. So let me talk about that. And this is, actually, I've got a question for all the listeners here. And I asked them to do this. You need a pen and paper, and you need to do this like quickly, like the first response. In fact, if you want to do it, Graham, you can do it as well. Okay. So just write down my first response, your first response to this question. So the question is it better to give or receive? Is it better to give or receive? Okay, just write something down. Okay, yep. So you've written something down. You don't have to tell me what it is right now. And of course, the listeners, you can't tell me what it is anyway. So let me ask you another question. Is it better to breathe in or breathe out? Is it better to breathe in or breathe out? So of course, okay, when I ask the second question, the answer to the first question, sorry, when I ask the second question, the answer to the first question becomes, because some people will, depending on how they're brought up, they'll say it's better to give. Well, of course, it's not better to give or receive, as it's not better to breathe in or breathe out. You have to in order to sustain our lives, we have to be able to breathe in and breathe out. And from a place of consciousness, we need to give in and receive. We need to give and receive. We need to be able to give out, but also to receive. So for a lot of people, we're culturally conditioned to give and give and give and give. And I've worked with a lot of people in health and education. They give and they give and they give, and then they burn out. Really warm, heart-based people, because they haven't learned to receive. And there's some kind of thing about, it's better to give than receive. It's not better, but it makes more sense to do both. So when we talk about compassion within embraining, we start with compassion for self. Compassion for self, actually breathing in, if you like. And I don't know if you're familiar with the work of Thomas Leonard. Thomas Leonard was a coaching legend. He was one of the pioneers in the coaching world. This is going back some 20 years ago more. Sadly, he's not alive anymore. And he wrote a book called The Portable Coach. And there's, I think, 26 principles. And the first principle, which pushes lots of buttons, and I kind of like that. And the first principle is to become incredibly selfish. And I think he says it deliberately to be kind of confrontational, controversial indeed, because a lot of people become incredibly selfish. The world is so selfish anyway. But what he's really saying is this. If you want to be of true service in the world, you have to have boundaries that says, I now need to take in. If we don't, and we're just giving out, then we burn out, and then we run on empty. So things like mindfulness, like meditation, allow us to take in. But if you say, oh, no, I've got to get the kids ready for school, I've got to do this, and mothers are very bad at doing this. So any mothers listening to this, you might find this conversation a little bit difficult, and I'm glad, because there's things that you need to know, that if you don't take in, if you're not okay about receiving, then actually you're actually stopping someone giving to you, which is really kind of quirky and ironic. So I've learned, and my friends know this, if someone says to me, Bill, would you like this, whatever it might be, if within me the answer is yes, I'll say yes, thank you very much. But sometimes people in our society would say yes, hoping that you'll say no. Oh, the last piece of cake, would you like this? Oh, thank you very much. Oh, I didn't really mean that. I wanted to say no so I can have it. So, like, get real. If you're going to offer it, then you better be must be authentic, because if you're not, I'm going to say yes. So my friends know that if they want to offer me something, they better be willing to give it to me. And I much prefer that with my friends. If I said to them, hey, can you do this? I'd much prefer a clear yes or no, rather than a yes with resentment. And so the first part of, and you know this, as a pilot, when they say when the oxygen comes down, you don't give it to a child next to you, even if it's your child, or an older person, you give it to yourself. Because if you can't breathe oxygen, if you're not alive, you can't help anybody else next to you. So there's a whole bunch of stuff around, it's not, we're being selfish if we think of ourselves. Actually being intelligent if we think of ourselves. Now, it doesn't mean to say that we don't give to others, but when we are clear about when we need to take and when we need to give, it makes it much easier. And I learned something really interesting in my early years as a therapist, and that was, and this is about sharing. Often, and I was, I'm the youngest of 3 boys, so my 2 brothers probably had to put up with this. But when we're kids, often, we have a toy. Let's say this is my favorite toy. This pen here is my favorite toy. And someone says to me, and I'm a little kid, and someone says, share it with Graham. And if I don't know that I own this pen, I might share it because I have to. I'm being coerced to. But a part of me is saying, well, I don't really want to share it because I don't know if I can get it back. But let's say I say to you, Graham, here, sure, you can have this. And if I know that when I'm ready to play with my toy again, I can ask for it and it comes back to me, then it's very easy for me as a little child to say, sure, play with all you like. But if we don't have the power to have our toy back, then the giving is done, but it's giving with resentment. Or because we're coerced, we're forced to do it. And so we don't learn then about ownership, true ownership of something. And if we don't learn about true ownership, then there'll always be a sense of insecurity about it, a fear about it, a fear of giving because you don't know how to get it back again. And for a lot of mothers maybe listening to this, one of the challenges is how do you sustain yourself and raise a child? And if it's always giving, 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 and not having any time for yourself, any nurturing for yourself, you'll burn out. And then the model that you give your children is the one of, I have to sacrifice you and I'm going to sacrifice myself, willing to die for you. So when you're a parent, you do the same. Not anywhere near as healthy, in my view, as saying, I need some time for myself, come back to me in 10 minutes when I've rested, when I've meditated, whatever, and then I'll play and I'll give my full attention to you. And I learned this as a parent with my own daughter, that I need to help her to understand sometimes her mum needed time for herself, but I need some time for myself. So it's treating people with equality and respect rather than this blanket, I have to give to everybody all the time. It's martyrism, if you like. It's being a resentful martyr. And I'm not willing to support anyone being a resentful martyr. I'd much rather have clear boundaries. So the first part is being willing to be compassionate for yourself. And when I'm working with my clients, I talk about eyes of judgment and eyes of compassion. And for a lot of people, they're walking around with eyes of judgment up here. Every single move that they make, they judge. And it's not judged in a nice way. And so there's this incredible self-dialogue, which is very, very damaging and limiting the person and how they express themselves in life. Rather than eyes of compassion that says, hey, sure, you messed up. As human beings, we are pretty much guaranteed we're going to mess up. And if we can come from a place of compassion about our mistakes, we've actually got a better chance of learning from them and doing something different. So once we know how to be self-compassionate, we know how to treat ourselves with kindness, with gentleness. And it's not just words, it's actually something that we actually practice and are able to do. Then we allow our own heart to fill up. And then from this overflowing heart, there's a natural tendency to want to flow into the world.
Would you say judgment is created? We create our judgments when there's a separation between our head brain and our heart brain?
Yes, the head brain is very good at coming up with judgments about ourselves. And this could be, sure, we can blame it on our parents, our culture, whatever you like. But ultimately, when we wake up and we see ourselves, there we are again in the mirror, it's us. It's me and me. It's like, and if I'm able to look at myself through eyes of compassion, we can have a better day. So judgment will often come from here. So part of this, which is really good, when people come from highest expressions, then their head brain understands that it's not okay to keep on doing that droopily negative self-dialogue on ourselves. It's not serving the heart. And so when I've helped people and I've worked with people, and through my own experience, coming from highest expressions more and more, my head brain just doesn't do that stuff. Just doesn't go there. Takes a little while for me. It took a little while for me to get to that, but now it's just like, wow, we have such lovely kind of connections and conversations because it's on my side. And you want to have your head brain on your side, because if it's not on your side, it can do a lot of damage. So once we then come back into the heart, and we can fill up our heart with care and acceptance for ourselves, then there's a natural outpouring, and so the flow comes. It comes in, it goes out, it comes in, it goes out, it comes in. And the more, it's a bit like this, the more we can breathe in, the more we can breathe out. So the more we are able to be self-compassioning, because it's a verb, it's so much easier then to take whatever we do and want to take it further into the world, because the further we take it into the world, more comes in. So it's like this self-perpetuating jug of water, that the more you pour out, as long as you know how to bring it in, the jug itself gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So then we come to the gut brain, and the highest expression of the gut brain is courage. Now, I've spoken about this before, that fear is often felt at the front of the belly. Butterflies in the stomach, anxiety. Often it can be caused by the stuff that's going on from a low coherent part of the head brain. It can be the cause of that. But courage comes from the back of the belly. It comes from around the adrenals and the kidneys. From a traditional Chinese medicine point of view, it makes perfect sense. Like the adrenals to give you energy, and kidneys is around fear. So it's kind of like this interplay of the two. And so for courage to show up, there has to be some kind of doubt or fear. That's a given. Otherwise, it's just confidence. But the other reason that courage will show up is when the emperor says, this is worth fighting for. This is important to me. And there have been so many examples around the world of people that were never leaders in their community, but something happened to their community that just fired up this fire in their belly, and they weren't public speakers, they didn't know how to express themselves, but they just found the words, because whatever the issue was strong enough for them to go, I'm not going to put up with this anymore. This is worth fighting for. And you see people popping up all over the world in different arenas, people saying, this is not enough, this is not good enough, we need to do something about this because this is not right. And when the heart says, when it's connected to something of value to us, then the general goes, okay, let's mobilize the army, let's step outside of ourselves, let's expand our core identity. So rather than being, this is all I am, we then allow ourselves to expand how it is that we show up. And even if it's scary, even if it's life-threatening, there's some things in life, I believe, that we cannot not do. Somewhere deep within our soul, we know there's some stuff for us to do on this planet. And when we connect to that, once we understand it, once we get a glimmer of that, we cannot not do it. It's almost like a compulsion, but in a good way. It's compelling, and when you really connect to, whether it is within you, like within your heart and within your belly, it's just like something comes alive in people. I don't know if you read the book, like Chocolate for Water, and they use the analogy of a matchbox. I don't have a matchbox, so that it's right. Oh, hang on, this is a box of staples. Here you go. Pretend this is a matchbox. It's the closest thing I've got to a matchbox in the house. And pretend this is a match. And so within us, we have this incredible capacity and power. And sometimes what it takes is a match. It could be something that's outside of us, but something that touches us, that when we set off one match inside this matchbox, it generates a power, a fire, which becomes consuming, but in a good way, because it lights up. It's just like, wow, I've got to do this. I don't care what it costs, what it takes. I've got to do this because this is way more important than me. And this is a common thing, that often when we're taking big, courageous actions in the world, because whatever the mission is, whatever the game is, whatever the campaign, it's bigger than the individual. And so there's a power that comes from that. And people go, wow, I never knew I had that capacity. They never had that capacity because they never needed that capacity in their life. But now something comes along and go, wow, I don't care what's going to happen. I'm going to do this. And so from a higher level, if you like, we can have warm, fuzzy hearts, we can have great ideas, but until we find the courage within us to do those things that, while they might be scary, when we do those things, it lights us up, our consciousness in such a way, and we go, wow. And it's just like, wow, I never knew this was inside of me. And it's so exciting that it just becomes a way of beingness, because now you're connected to something that's unstoppable. And so the more we can go, okay, and courage doesn't have to be a big thing. It doesn't have to be taking on the world for something. But sometimes, courage might be standing up to someone in their life. It might be expressing something that they've never expressed before. It might be going back and doing something, a hobby that was in their childhood that they always ignored, but now it comes back. It may be doing something in a different way. It doesn't have to be big global things that everyone sees. It can just be small acts of courage within our life. And so, and for me as a coach, an MB coach specifically, when we have people come into coach training, so I'm a coach, but also train people to become coaches in this modality. When we have people come in, we ask them certain questions. And one thing that I've noticed, not just in my own trainings, but in trainings I've done with other people, when we get down to the nitty-gritty of why people show up, it's because there's some kind of disconnection from their belly. They may be connected to their heart and their head, but they haven't fully connected to the power within their belly. And I'd say probably 50 or 60% or maybe more is this wanting a connection from a deep, really powerful part of us, because there's something else that the person wants to do in their life. But it means stepping up, it means being courageous, it means stepping outside of our comfort zone, all the things that we know about. But this is like the source of power. And we're connected to the heart. It's like when you get those three amigos on board, like, look out, stuff's going to change in the world. And that's really what the essence of all this work is, to liberate the human spirit. That's the essence of all of this. It's about consciousness and liberating the human spirit.
So, Bill, can I just summarise then and see if I've got it right from your perspective? The highest expression of the head brain is creativity.
Yes.
The highest expression of our heart brain is compassion.
Yes.
And the highest expression of our gut brain is courage. Yes? So what I've picked up from the previous videos is that the object, in order to come into this higher expression of our spirit, we need to have all these in alignment. Is that right?
Yes, indeed. Yeah. Because if you've got these three intelligences and they're all going in different directions, then you're not going to get to a coherent state. Your highest expressions won't be able to emerge from the person because they're kind of all over the place. Yeah, so a big part of our work is helping people, first of all, connect to the three intelligences. The second part, which is what we call congruence, is actually getting all three are the intelligences lined up and on the same page? And then from this place, you can help the person to, we coach them through highest expressions with whatever the particular issue is that they're dealing with. So how can you come from a place of compassion and creativity and courage with this issue in their life, whatever it might be? That's very well kind of summarized.
Okay, so here's a question for you. These days, logic gets a lot of bad press. So here's my question for you. If our logic is created when we're in a state of alignment and integration, does that logic make sense?
Oh, when we're aligned?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So you can take, logic by itself is a way of thinking things in a certain sequential manner. And intuition, if you like. So it's often thought of logic being left brain, and the creative part, is more right hemisphere. So when I first came across left brain and right brain, I had my own natural appreciations, if you like, because I came from a world of computers initially. My work was in computers, which are very, very left brain. Then I did some programs that really open up my right brain. And then I realized it's not a matter of left being good or bad, or it's not a matter of the differences, but how they work together. So when someone is coming from a coherent, aligned state, then naturally logic is going to come and it's going to be supportive of whatever's happening. And also, because it'll make sense, but also intuition, if you like, or more right brain creative ways can also merge in. So there's a merging of the two. And it really is this integration, because when we come from highest expressions, it is, if you like, true integration, not only of all three intelligences, but all the different parts of within those intelligences. So it's like, 1 and 1 doesn't equal 2, 1 and 1 equals about 5 or 50, if you like. It's kind of goes out that way.
So Bill, how can I apply this in a everyday life? I mean, let's say I've got a major decision to make. How can I apply this and make it work for me?
Yeah. So this is actually, when we talk about, the applications of this, and there are many, many different applications, and one certainly is in decision making. And everyone watching this, you can, if you think of the quality of your life right now, whatever the day and time is that you're listening to this interview, and pretty much the decisions that we make, if you track back, they're based on, the quality of our life is based on the decisions that we've made over a period of time. It could be hundreds of thousands, it could be millions of decisions, depending on how old we are. And I don't know about you, but I've made some pretty dumb, stupid decisions. And sometimes when I track back now, my head brain was involved or my gut brain was involved, but certainly wasn't all three of my intelligences on the same page. And when I look back at some of the really wise decisions that I've made, all three intelligences have lined up. And people can, you don't have to believe me, you can just go through your own experience and you'll be able to notice these too. So moving forward then, let's say someone's got to make a major decision. Do I go in this direction or do I go in that direction? Do I buy this piece of software? Do I buy this car? Do I do this? Do I go out with this person? I'm going to use my props again here. So let's say this is a person and they're three intelligent, their head, their heart and their gut. And this is the decision that they're considering. When they can get aligned, first of all, by using the breathing technique, the breathing 6 seconds in, 6 seconds, and getting to a still place, then we can ask our head, our heart, and our gut brain what its perspective is on this. Now, I just put this down for a minute. So let's say the head brain goes, okay, my perspective is this. My heart is saying this, and my gut brain is saying this. And they might be different. They might have different perspectives. Let's say, give you an example. I may have used this example before, but let's say someone is thinking of getting in a relationship again. Maybe they've been out of a relationship for a while, and they're feeling like it's time to go, be with another human being in a special relationship. And so the heart brain might be saying, I want to connect again. It's time for me to enjoy that kind of relationship that I had in the past. And the gut brain's going, no way. You're not going back there again. Look at the mess that you made last time. You're not ready. And so it has all these security things, issues, if you like, that are going on. And the head brain might be going, yep, logically, we haven't been with anyone for 3 months, 3 minutes, 3 years, whatever it might be. It makes sense. It's time now. So these two might be on the same page. The head and the heart might be going, sure. But the gut brain saying, no. If I just look at how you're operating, you're not ready yet. You haven't learned about assertiveness. You haven't learned about expressing yourself. You haven't learned about saying no. You just say yes to everybody all the time. You're a gullible dummy. I'm not going to let you get anywhere near someone until the two of you have learned some stuff. And when you've learned to do that, then I'll be willing to play. So if you like, another way of kind of getting the three intelligent on the same page is, if you were to play and say yes to this, what are the criteria that you need in order for you to go, yep, let's do this? So the gut brain might be saying to the heart and the head, okay, I want you to go and do an assertiveness course. Or I want you to learn martial arts. Or I want you to learn about being, going to better places to meet people rather than some of the sleazy places that you've been in the past, whatever it might be. So in other words, listen to the concerns of each. And it's like a conversation that I might have with you about something. That, I want to do this and you want to do this, and so, what's your perspective? What's my perspective? What are the things that you may need to have happen? What are the things that I need to have happen? In order for us both to be okay about moving forward on something. It's a bit like just a simple business decision. You get together with someone in business and you have to work out how we're going to make this a win-win, otherwise why go forward? So for example, my daughter at the moment is, she's finishing 4th year of photography at university, and she could go on and do honours, or she could get into the workforce. And so, my conversations with her was, okay, so sure, you could do this or you could do that. Get into a place that's aligned. Like, do the breathing so you're in a balanced autonomic nervous state. Get a sense of what each intelligence is saying about this particular thing. Then with that kind of awareness, then make a more inclusive decision. And if one of them has got some concerns, then pay attention to what they are, fulfill those, work them out in some way, then come back and revisit this and go, okay, am I ready to do this? Right? What's my head brain saying? What's my heart saying? What's my gut saying? What do I really want to do? What's going to expand my life? And so rather than just taking from either like a left brain or a right brain decision, or a head brain or the heart, see the heart, let me just talk about the heart for a moment. The heart can be fickle. You walk into a shopping mall, all these different shops, I want this, I want that. So the heart, bless its cotton socks. I love the heart, but it can also be fickle. So it's not enough just to make a decision just purely from the heart, because it's the emperor or the empress. These other two have also got to come in, they've got their say. So they all have their own bits of insight that we need to pay attention to. And if I just briefly talking about this and about decision making in business, in M-branding we talk about real leadership or pseudo leadership. And often what happens is, let's say this is an issue, and this is a company, and something happens in the industry here, and often pseudo-leadership is they will have a risk-adverse gut reaction to this. How do I save myself? How do I save my reputation? So it starts from the gut, and then the head quickly gets into it, goes, okay, let's come up with some ideas so we can save, get some good PR out there. But you'll notice that the heart is missing. And if you look at industry and business, a lot of decisions you make, wow, where on earth was their humanity when they came to that decision? But true leadership, true real leadership, is when someone looks at this and they come from a place of compassion for this. It might be their client base, it might be the world, whatever it might be. They start here. Then they come up with some ideas that support the heart, and then they take courageous action. But notice where it's starting. It's starting from the heart. So, and there's there is a big opportunity for industry, for business, to take this idea of multiple braining, of multiple intelligences, of highest expressions into the world, because some of the decisions that have been made, and I just where were they? Did all the hearts leave the building? Where's the sense of compassion? Because they could, people actually make more money when they come from an authentic compassion place, and many organizations are doing this right now. They understand from a bottom line business financial point of view, they can get a bigger chunk of the pie from coming from a place of compassion. And you see this sprouting all over the world, more and more now. Anyway, that was a slight diversion. I hope it hasn't taken it too far away from the conversation.
Where are you going to take this, Bill? This whole thing about integrating the three brains in the workplace?
Okay, so for me, end-branding can go anywhere. Like there's some colleagues of mine that are working with end-branding around wealth creation and financial services industry, and that's great. But it's not where my heart is. So a couple of years ago, I was in a seminar, and we may have had this conversation before, but anyway, I'll just come back to it. And we got to write down, what do you want to do when you grow up, kind of conversation. And what I wrote down was that I want to help individuals, entrepreneurs, businesses and corporations make more heart-based decisions. And when I wrote it, I felt quite emotional because this is my heart talking, but I had no idea how on earth was I going to help influence businesses and corporations to make more heart-based decisions. I had no idea of the how to do that. Cut a long story short, came across Marvel again and branding, and now I know exactly how to do it. So my passion with this is specifically with heart-based entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurs can change the world, but they're entrepreneurs that just want to make money. They don't care how they make it. An arms dealer can set up an entrepreneurial business selling tanks and guns, etc. But it's not exactly going to be saving the world. They're going to be causing more chaos. There are chemical companies that can make lots of money in the world, but I look at some of the products that are created by pharmaceutical companies, and some anyway, that's another conversation. So for me, what I want to help is heart-based entrepreneurs, people that come from a place of compassion first, that they look into the community and they go, how can I use my skills, my talents, and create something that is truly compassionate, that truly serves the planet, the people on the planet, the environment, all living things on the planet. And so for me, if I can help them to get aligned, if I can help them get to a place of calmness inside of them, if I can help them come up with even greater ideas than they've ever thought of before, that's directionalized and connect to their courage and with their convictions, what's truly in their heart, then if I can help heart-based entrepreneurs to create more environmentally based, innovative products that can serve thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people, then for me, I would have found my place in the weave of the universe in such a way which fulfills my own personal aspirations of how I can show up on the planet, but also in a way far greater than me, myself. So it's not just about me, my identity, but it's about something that's way bigger than just me as an individual. So I'm about to start my very first online program. It's called the Branding Playground for Heart-Based Entrepreneurs, and the playground is it's going to be a playground. So that's really what I'm creating. It's not going to be like serious. It's like a play. It's play. Like creativity comes from a sense of playfulness, and so I want to incorporate, a lot of things that I've from branding, but a lot of other things I've done in my life. Because if I figure I can help heart-based entrepreneurs make a bigger impact, I'll be. Thank you so much. This is what I'm here to do. This is part of my life purpose, and I can really feel it from the inside of me, from deep inside of me. In a sense, where we are now is a combination of all the things that have brought us to this particular place. And for me, it's a perfect storm, in a sense, of all these different things going, right, the stuff that I know that I want to do, stuff that I know I can't not do, but I want to. It's just like, Yahoo, like that's. There's a big ride coming up, and I just can't wait to get on the horse and off we go. Anyway.
So, Bill, every corporation, every business is made up of individuals.
Yes.
How does this integration of the three brains resolve personal issues?
Well, if I can, I had a call from someone I know is working in an organisation, and they are wanting some coaching for one of the individuals. And what's happening is the individual doesn't have all the communication skills that they could have. And so the company, from a business point of view, can either sack them, go, let's just hire somebody else that does have the skills, or they can help, with the aid of people like myself, could be myself or somebody else, coach that person into expanding their skill set. And so what I've said to them is, well, there's another approach that you can have, and you can actually come from a compassionate point of view and actually look at the approach that they've got in working with this individual. And if they come from a place of compassion, how can they serve this individual, but also how can they serve the organisation? Because they could just come from an accounting point of view, tick, 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 yes, do we keep them, no, do we kick them out, whatever. Or they can actually change the process of how they go about doing this. So there's an opportunity for me and this organisation to actually bring the three intelligences into the organisation. And they, just in the initial conversation, they're really quite excited about this because they actually work within the organic field anyway. So they're more likely to have a predisposition for this kind of philosophy. And so that if an organisation can set things up where compassion is part of the culture, not just outside for their clients, but also within their culture, they can come from a place of compassion. And I've often said this, is, there's no job description I've ever seen in my 30 years of working with organisations that says, you must bring your heart into this job. And you couldn't actually write it into a job description because you can't dictate someone brings their heart into the business. But what you can do is create the culture, the environment, where someone naturally wants to put in their heart into it because they love the mission, they love what the organisation's doing, they love how people work and connect. And when you've got that kind of buzz of true collaboration, it's so much fun to work in a place like that, rather than just turning up, clocking in 9 to 5 and leaving your creativity at home and not bringing it to work. So there's a lot of things that organisations can do, and bringing things like mindfulness is resilience training is coming into organisations because they're understanding it from a corporate point of view, like a money point of view. Bottom line, I don't know why they call it the bottom line, but anyway, you don't have to make more money when you've got a group of people that are really enthused and literally put their heart and soul into it because they want to, not because they have to, but because they want to, which changes the structure of how of what you create, which changes the consciousness of the people in the organisation and where they come from and how they show up, which means that they can have more products, get to more people in such a way which is more sustainable and better for the business organisation itself.
Excellent. Bill, do you have a website that people can make contact with you regarding this business model?
Well, they can come to my core website is evolveaustralia.com.au, and I will at some stage have another website around the branding for heart-based entrepreneurs. I haven't set that up yet, so I won't give that out. But if they come to evolveaustralia.com.au, then they can always contact me and then we can take the discussions further. And when I do have a website, if I can come back to you and say, yep, here's my new website, then I'll be really happy to share that because, for me, it's people finding out what, I use the term the weave of the universe. So if we can find our place in the weave of the universe and all the different ways that we can do that and find that and honor it and really delve into that, then we can do our bit to make sure that things come to such a place in the consciousness of humanity that we can shift to a different era because it's so needed right now. Just have to look at the world and go, yep, the shift in consciousness would be a really good thing on a massive scale. But one person at a time. Ourselves first and then from there.
Excellent, Bill. Well, you're welcome back on the show at any stage. So I'd just like to thank you on behalf of the listeners for all that you've shared with us, and on behalf of the Be Empowered show, I'm your host, Graham Hopkins, and this is really a conversation, if you like, about how to feel connected to your own truth as opposed to feeling separate from it. And Bill has certainly aided in that discussion, so thank you very much, Bill.
Thank you, Graham. I've really enjoyed being here and look forward to coming back again sometime in the future.
Excellent. So, ladies and gentlemen, you can aid this Be Empowered show by going onto iTunes and leaving a review and increasing the ratings and then increasing the exposure that these shows are getting. If you'd like to learn more about the concepts, you can go to Bill's website, or you can go to Amazon and download my book called The Manifesto of Your Inspirational Mind. Or my website is www.beempoweredgroup.com, and on there there's a free ebook called Know Your True Value and Worth. So on behalf of Bill and myself, it's been a great conversation, and we wish you all the best and a world full of integration, connection, peace and joy. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks so much for listening to the Be Empowered podcast. For more on regaining your power by bridging that gap between who you think you are right now and who you really are, go to www.beempoweredgroup.com and enter your name and email address to receive a free ebook and get notified of any upcoming podcasts. Remember, when you know and feel connected to your spiritual mind, you master your world. Changing your energy transforms your life.